We thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us tonight. At this time, we'd like to respectfully ask you to turn off the sound of your cell phones. May I remind anyone wishing to address the board that they must have completed a public comment card before the start of this meeting, letting us know what you would like to speak about or the topic about which that is on our agenda. As your Board of Trustees, we are here to set goals for the district, listen to reports presented by the superintendent and his designees, and review the budget. We approve certain personnel appointments and contracts and make policy for the district. Management is the responsibility of the superintendent. It is board's responsibility to govern the affairs of the district and to ensure that the district is moving forward in meeting the vision and goals that are set on an annual basis. Meeting times of the board meetings are posted on the AISD website at AbileneISD.org. The public is invited to attend. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Jay Ashby, the Executive Director of Innovation and Program Development, to lead us in our invocation and pledges. Welcome, Jay. Dr. Ashby.
Please bow your heads with me. Heavenly Father, we are here with grateful hearts for the opportunity to serve our community. We ask for your guidance over this meeting. Grant us wisdom in our decisions and help us to lead with empathy and courage as we work on behalf of our students, families, and our community. In your name we pray. Amen. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Let's move on to item B, Board Superintendent Announcements. Dr. Kuhn, do you have any announcements for us?
I've got just a few. I've got three dates I want to mention. First of all, tomorrow is Read Across America. So I know we're going to have some volunteer readers going to some of our elementaries. I'll be going to Martinez. I'm excited about that. Also, next week is spring break. And then April 2nd, we have a Spanish spelling bee that we're hosting for our students, and that's going to be exciting. And then I have 4 brags I want to share. First of all, we have our TAFE students, which is Future Educators, Texas Association of Future Educators, that have qualified for nationals. We've got several of those kids going to nationals this summer in Oregon. We also have several students participating in Skills USA, which is a trades competition that have qualified for the state contest in Corpus Christi. So they'll be going next month to represent AISD against kids from all over the state. Also, we had 3 debate competitors from Abilene High that have qualified for nationals in debate. And our choirs recently finished up their UIL concert and sight reading season, and we had great results district-wide from our choirs. And I think we're going to hear a little bit more about some of our choir students tonight. So that's all the announcements I have. Thank you.
Great. Are there any other announcements? All right. Well, at this time, I would like to read you our mission. AISD will equip learners to make a positive impact in their world through relevant, innovative, and challenging learning experiences. So now we're going into our teaching minute, and I think you're going to find some of those elements in this minute of watching a qualified, knowledgeable teacher work in the classroom.
Yeah, later. How's it going? Yeah.
I'm thirsty.
Pray for us. How's it going? My name is Matt Marchbanks, and I teach 8th grade U.S. History at Man STEAM Academy. All right, guys, go to your desk. Let's go. Go to your desk. Go to your desk, please. Look at your warm-up. Today, we're talking about what we call sectionalism, how the North and the South and the West all developed differently, and how those differences kind of drove us towards the Civil War and divided the North versus the South. We're going to be doing some reading together. I'll be modeling some of the reading, and that's the lesson. How we're going to do this is we're going to do a reading, okay? Everybody get your reading out. I'm going to use kind of an I do, you do, we do structure. Basically, I'm going to model part of the lesson. Everybody get out your reading passes. We're going to go start with the North, that we're going to read together. Remember, my expectation is that you're reading along with me. And when I point to the class, and when I leave a word out, you say it back to me, all right? Then they're going to do an independent section on their own, and then they'll partner up and talk to each other, and they'll do a lot of different activities to kind of reinforce what they learned. With your group or with your partner, you guys are going to answer and read section for the West, and you're going to answer the questions together. I am walking around grading you, listening, okay? You guys got 5 minutes on the clock. Be ready to share and be done with all 3 sections in 5 minutes. Ready? The thing that I love about teaching history is that it teaches kids to utilize critical thinking skills in a big way. Like I tell my kids, it's really a reading and writing class. There's a lot of reading, a lot of writing. You have to be able to read at a really high level, process what you've just read, and then it becomes teaching kids how do we express our ideas, you know, in a way that is positive, in a way that adds to the conversation, doesn't take away from it. And so, yeah, I love history. I read it on my own, and it's really the only thing I've ever wanted to teach.
Middle school teachers. Let's give them a hand. And like I said, equipped learners, brighter futures. At this time, now we're going to move on to item 4, recognitions. Mr. Clay Johnson, Executive Director of Fine Arts, will come and take it over from now.
Good evening, Dr. Kuhn, President Wiley, members of the board. It is my honor to be here tonight to introduce you to Abilene ISD's newest Texas All-State Choir students. Each year, over 70,000 students audition for the chance to be selected for this honor. Only 2.6% of students that audition through the rigorous process are selected. Once selected, the students participate in a multi-day clinic in concert with world-renowned clinicians at the TMEA Clinic and Convention in San Antonio. This year, we have 2 Abilene ISD students selected to the All-State Choir, Miss Olivia Ransford and Mr. Jackson Liskey. Olivia is a sophomore at Abilene High School and is the daughter of Justin and Lindsay Ransford. She was selected for the TMEA All-State Treble Choir as a member of the Alto 2 section. Olivia studies voice with Dr. Amanda Guidi, piano with Mrs. Shirley Anderson, and the oboe with Mrs. Susie Rocket. This year, Olivia qualified for the area round in both choir and in band. Olivia is a member of Pure Gold, National Honor Society, and is a 2-year Texas Music Scholar. Jackson is a senior at Abilene High School and is the son of Michelle Liskey. Jackson was selected for the TMEA All-State Tenor Bass Choir as a member of the Bass 1 section. Jackson is the concert choir president, a 4-year member of concert choir, 3-year member of Pure Gold, and has held numerous major roles in theater productions during his time at Abilene High. The choir directors for Abilene High School are Mrs. Wendy Weeks and Mr. Ramel Derrick, who are both with us today. Please join me in congratulating these students and these directors for this outstanding accomplishment.
Perfect. Olivia, can I have you step forward just a little bit? Yeah, that way. That's perfect. And then can you squeeze a little right? Yeah. Oh, that's picture perfect, guys. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Let's move on to item 6, oral communication from the public. The board encourages comments about the district from members of the public. Anyone wishing to address the board must have completed a public comment card before the start of the public portion of tonight's meeting, letting us know what agenda item or topic about which they wish to speak. Oral communication from the public is governed by the AISD policy BED local. Under the Texas Open Meetings Act, the board is not permitted to discuss or act upon any issues that are not posted on the agenda for that meeting. A speaker will be given up to 5 minutes to address the board. If, however, the total number of speakers seeking to address the board at a meeting exceeds 5, the per speaker time limit may be reduced. In no event will a speaker be given less than 1 minute to address the board tonight. Tonight we have 10 speakers, so we will be allowing 2.5 minutes apiece. Dr. Kuhn will monitor the time and make the speaker aware when time is up. Okay, let's do this. With our wonderful response to public comment, I really am looking forward to hearing from people tonight. First up, Katie Maxwell, and following her is Henry Maxwell.
Today, I want to express immense gratitude for the social workers, homeless liaisons, behavior specialists, and other professionals who serve our students and families with significant challenges. With over 800 homeless youth in the district, Darren Cox provides more than just food and clothing to students in need. He is a listening ear, a person AISD families trust, and he approaches each student with immense worth. Tina Fleet leads a team of social workers who solve problems from bed bugs to ensuring students make it to school every day. And our behavior specialists who don't see children by the mistakes they make, but as children with experiences that are too big for their little hearts. Thank you to the school board for continuing to fund these positions and prioritizing this care and dignity of every student. Many of the books that have been challenged reflect the stories of students in AISD. Many of our students are victims of violence, trafficking, abandonment, substance abuse, and other cruelties they should never have to endure. The power of a book provides language to students who thought domestic violence was normal and who believe their only worth is found in what money they can make. The story found in Sold is the same story of some of our students who walk the halls of AISD schools. May we continue to build a community that values our students' stories, strengthens their sense of belonging, and celebrates the transformative power of literature. Together, we can hold onto the hope that a single book has the potential to positively change a person's life. Thank you.
I want to clarify one thing on the timer. I can only do round numbers, so I can only put 2 minutes on that timer. So I'm going to do 30 seconds on my phone. When it gets to 0, then I'll start the 2-minute timer.
I did forget to give you the chance to say that, and I made it hard for you tonight, sorry. Henry Maxwell, welcome, and after Henry is Christy Brokaw.
Hi, my name is Henry Maxwell, and I'm a 6th grader at Craig Middle School. Middle school gets a bad rap. When I was in 5th grade, all I heard were these horror stories about kids getting beat up in the bathroom or daily fights in the hallway. I'm now 3/4 through my first school year as a middle schooler, and I'm relieved to say I haven't experienced this at all. In fact, I'm actually loving middle school, and I believe this is because I have amazing teachers and leaders at Craig. I'd like to personally give a shout out to Miss Esquivel, Coach Childress, Mr. Box, Mr. Rhodes, Coach Wilson, Mrs. West, Mrs. Connor, and Miss Moore for being awesome teachers and giving me the individual support I've needed to be successful this year. I also want to thank Mrs. Collins, Miss KJ for supporting me, Principal West for low-key slaying her first year at Craig, and Miss Jessica in front office for being so kind when I lose my ID and need her to reprint it again. Thanks for letting me share about my wonderful school. Go Colts!
Yes.
You low-key slayed it as well.
Christy Brokaw, and then after her, John Brokaw.
I agree with Henry. All of those teachers are awesome. My kids have had them as well. I just wanted to give a shout out tonight to another Craig teacher. I didn't know that we were all celebrating Craig tonight. Mrs. Lindsay Ransford, and she was here for her daughter, but has had to leave for a choir event. Her results as choir director at Craig speak for themselves. You can see the sweepstakes that they get every single year, every single choir. But also, she cares so deeply about our kids and their hearts and their well-being. I have been on the Choir Booster Club for the last 2 years, and this year Mrs. Ransford came to us and she said, hey, I'm noticing that with a lot more students in choir, I have some cliques forming. I've got a choir divided, and it happens with middle school. It's a normal thing, but I hate to see it. And she said, I really think if I can get them together outside of choir to just play together, we can get to know each other outside of our cliques. And so she asked us to help her sponsor a bunco night for the girls and a bingo night for the boys. And we, put it together within a couple of weeks. And she, on her own time outside of school, came and hosted this bunco night. I didn't make it to the bingo night. I don't have a boy in choir. And it was so sweet to see, they made dirty sodas, which is where they add coconut cream to their sodas, and they thought that was so cool. And they played bunco together, and they rotated, between tables and had different partners. And they were just laughing together and having a great time. And I just felt so warm knowing that our choir director isn't just there about the singing, although she does that so well. She's also saying, hey, I see these girls and I see these boys. And she even told us with the bingo night, I've got one boy that's an outsider. And I just want him to come in and play with the other boys. You know, I want them to see him and start to include him. And for a director to have this many students and see that one is so special. And I wanted you to know about that. So thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. John Brokaw, followed by Tammy Fogel.
Good evening. Thank y'all for making space for us to share today. My name is John Brokaw. As you mentioned, I graduated from Abilene High School in 2002, and I have now been a parent of an AISD student for about 11 years. And I've got another 11 years still coming as a parent of an AISD student. We've been here for a long time. And I just wanted to take a minute to express gratitude to all of the members of the AISD that are here and elsewhere. It has been the joy of my life to see my kids develop. I have my oldest right now is a junior at Abilene High. And to see them become the people that they are becoming has been deeply gratifying, and I would be remiss to say that it wasn't in part because of the school district here, the community that has surrounded them and formed them. And so I'm grateful for everyone here, for the way that y'all have led with wisdom and with kindness and with courage. All of those things are really important because I've seen those things showing up in my kids as they become the beautiful young adults that they are. So thank you to all of you here. Thank you, Principal Seibert, who's leading that school where my kids are, or my oldest is right now. Also, I just wanted to shout out, my son plays on the soccer team there at Abilene High, and their varsity team just won school district 2 days ago, so we're really excited about that. Yep. Lastly, and this is almost small, but this was actually not insignificant. My son, there was a unfortunate incident in the school parking lot right at the end of last semester, and Officer Valentine, who's here in the back, was incredibly helpful, just getting the insurance stuff taken care of. And that, it's those little small things that make a difference when you have responsible adults that are really looking out for everybody. So thank you all for all that you do.
Thank you. My family has an SRO story also. So we'll leave that up to your imagination. But Tammy Fogel, followed by Kate Stover.
So since I have a little extra time, I just want to say it's so neat to have so many community members coming and showing up to school board meetings and celebrating the schools and doing this, because this is what this is for. It's not just to take care of business, but it's also to engage the community, so I'm grateful for that. I just wanted to let you know, well, you all know, but just to publicly state that I filed a petition of review to the TEA last week to appeal the Abilene ISD decision to remove the books that violate SB 13 because of the profane and indecent content in them. It was covered by media across Texas last week. Sadly, when I met with Dr. Kuhn in August of 2025, I asked him if he was willing to take out these sexually explicit or print books, and he said it depended on educational content. The problem with that is SB 13 no longer allows that to be an exception, and I knew that we'd be having some problems because it seems at best that no one in the school district knows the law, or at worst, you're purposely ignoring it. Recently in an email, a school board member communicated to me that, quote, our actions are not informed or motivated by anything you do or don't do, end quote. What is so preposterous about that is that's the exact reason why you were elected, to not only serve, but to be informed and motivated by people like me, not just the stakeholders. Both of my appeals that I addressed to you were very clear because SB 13 is easy to read, and informed you that the SLAC was not following SB 13. It was only using one of the 3 parts of the law, and you ignored me. What's more concerning is that as an elected body, you seem to think you get to pick and choose who you listen to and what laws you will comply with or won't comply with. Well, I'm just a community member. You are accountable to the laws passed by the state of Texas in terms of how you run the school district. If a community member brings to you how you're violating the law, to your attention at least, one would think you would correct your course of action and do just that. There are still books that we're continuing to discover that violate our community values, and more important, they violate SB 13 in Abilene ISD. So I think it's important that we just call it what it is, change our course of action, and start doing what the law says, and that's to remove these books from the Abilene Independent ISD. You can do it at any point as a board member. That's your right. That is your prerogative, and it is not illegal, and it doesn't violate anyone's First Amendment right. So let's get to work so that we can actually take care of the things that we can celebrate and move forward with this, rather than dealing with what the law says and why we shouldn't have to follow it. Thank you.
Kate Stover, followed by Rachel Riley.
Good evening. Thank you for all of your work on the school board and all the time that you spend doing this. I really appreciate everything that y'all put into this. I just want to provide a quick fact check to the petition that was filed with TEA and the articles that have circulated on social media this week. Both claim that in the November SLAC meeting, I opened the meeting by talking about the 3-pronged harmful material test and omitted the separate profane and indecent definitions, thereby misleading SLAC members on the criteria for evaluation. While it is true that I did not cover that, I went back and listened to that November meeting, and as it was stated on the agenda, Lindsay Williamson opened the meeting and she reviewed SB 13. At 5 minutes and 30 seconds into the meeting, before I spoke, she referred members to the legal definitions of profane and indecent as described in Senate Bill 13 that were in the shared Google folder that the members had in front of them. Those criteria were also included on the reconsideration forms that every member used to evaluate books. Indecent means content that portrays sexual or excretory organs or activities in a way that is patently offensive. Profane means content that includes grossly offensive language that is considered a public nuisance. What is considered patently or grossly offensive according to contemporary standards within the community is still somewhat subjective. We have 7 members who vote. The fact that they don't all agree on each criterion for every book is evidence that this is a democratic process. Rather than voting to keep all of the books no matter what, or to remove all of the books, each member evaluated the book according to all the criteria, including profane and indecent, as was presented by Ms. Williamson at the beginning of the November meeting. Thank you.
Rachel Riley, followed by Marilyn Luke, or Marilyn Luke, I don't know. Maylin.
Hello, thank you for just allowing all of us to address you and to speak. As a proud parent of an Abilene High senior, I had no idea that I'd benefit so much from attending AISD school board meetings. Admittedly, my initial interest in investment was to advocate for our fantastic librarians, but I've left the meeting shored up by the celebrations of what we are doing well in AISD. The criticism may be incredibly loud and require an exhausting of our attentive resources, but I'd like to submit a counterweight, if I may. The creative writing program and AP English classes at Abilene High, both of which rely heavily on our librarians' resources, have been life changers for my children. They've helped them obtain scholarships and admission to top-tier universities. But none of that matters as much as our families' discussions over dinner about what they're reading and how they are learning. They have differed in their opinions with their teachers. Of course they have. They're teenagers. However, the critical thinking muscles they have built in these programs help me to feel more confident about their new experiences in higher ed. I'd like to give a special shout out to Mr. James McGee. Whether he knows it or not, he's been at our dinner table for the past 4 years. And I'm really going to miss him. Thank you.
We are. I think we'll all miss him. Maylin Luke,
Yes.
followed by Gideon.
Good evening. Thank you guys for letting me speak today. As she said, my name is Maylin Luke. I wanted to share a sobering reality from right here in Taylor County. According to Texas.gov, Taylor County saw over 3,000 investigations into child abuse in 2025. Those include sexual, emotional, physical abuse, neglect, trafficking. These aren't just numbers, they represent children in our community carrying the weight of trauma. Studies show that reading about trauma can give children a roadmap for emotional growth. These books can help children regulate their emotions, develop coping skills, and understand that they are not alone. When we ban books that address these hard topics, we aren't protecting our youth. We are instead removing the very tools they need to process their trauma. By suppressing survivor stories, we make it harder for the next generation to break the cycle of abuse. Books provide a safe way for children to process trauma, and I hope we can continue to help the children facing adversity in our community feel seen. Thank you.
Gideon, followed by Farron Berkman. Berkham.
Pencils sharpened in the case, bells are ringing, let's make haste. School's beginning, think dreams to chase, all are welcome here. No matter how you start your day, what you wear when you play, or if you come from far away, all are welcome. In our classroom, safe and sound, fears are lost and hope is found. Raise your hand, well, go around, all are welcome here. Gather now, let's all take part. We'll play music while we'll make art. We'll share stories from the heart, all are welcome here. Time for lunch, what a spread, a dozen different kinds of bread. Pass it around till everyone's fed, all are welcome here. Open doors, rush outside, we will swing, we will slide, we'll have fun. Side by side, all are welcome here. We're part of a community, all our strength is our diversity, a shelter from adversity, all are welcome here. We will learn from each other, special talents will uncover. There's a big world to discover. All are welcome here. So much to learn, so much to do, and when the busy day is through, can't wait to come back to start anew. Heard from home to get some rest, and great tomorrow ready and fresh. Our time together is the best.
Thank you so much.
Farron Berkham.
Hi, thank y'all so much. I have just recently been coming in the last couple months and listening to multiple sides of stories, and with a beautiful child who's at Taylor. Everyone is shouting out their teachers, so I'll shout out Miss Bridges because she is just an incredible human who we love teaching our son. With all of that being said, I wrote something, so I'm going to read that for y'all quickly. I think in our community we're being told that banning books is protecting our children, but one of the questions that has come up for me as I've been listening to certain sides is, when was the last time that the people pushing book bans showed up to fund a school counselor? When did they donate books to an underfunded classroom? When did they advocate for mental health resources in our schools, or push for anti-bullying programs, or work to make sure that every child in this AISD community has a safe space. Because the research is clear that when students are given the freedom to choose what they read, their mental health improves. They develop compassion, they think critically, and they can feel less alone. This is not an opinion. This is documented, peer-reviewed evidence over multiple sources. The American Library Association also recorded in 2023 that over 1,200 efforts to ban or restrict library books were happening, which is over 4,200 titles. And I can't imagine what that number has now grown through across the United States. The Perks of Being a Wallflower is one of the most challenged books in America. It deals with trauma, abuse, mental illness, and the desperate need to feel seen. For countless young people, especially of those who have survived things they can't yet name, that book is not dangerous. It is a lifeline. It tells them their experiences are real, their pain is valid, and their story matters. This is a book that saved my life as a high school student at Abilene High while experiencing sexual abuse. I feel like our community members really focus on what our values are as a community, and having these books are an important value for our community, for people who experienced things like I did during high school, and that our students also need to have access to feel seen and heard. Thank you.
We appreciate members of the community here and appreciate the time that you've devoted to your school by being here tonight. Now let's go on to item 7, consent agenda. The AISD Board of Trustee meetings are preceded by an in-depth board workshop held prior to the regular meetings. The purpose of the workshop meeting is to discuss items in preparation for potential consideration at future board meetings. Does a board member need to remove anything from the consent agenda for further discussion? Do I have a motion regarding the items on the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second. We have now take a roll call vote. Blair Schrader,
Yes.
Danny Wheat,
Yes.
Rodney Goodman,
Yes.
Bill Enriquez,
Yes.
Taylor Tidmore,
Yes.
Cindy Earls,
Yes.
Angie Wiley, yes. Motion passes 7-0. Let's now move on to item 8, reports. Item 8A is our goal progress measures, which has become an important issue for our board to hear data on the progress of our goals, obviously, but to keep us informed of how our achievement is going in the district. We have Patty Blue's team, or Patty may be up there with them, Associate Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, and she has with her some team members.
Good evening. As you can see, I have a large group with me tonight. Luckily, they're going to talk, and I'm not going to. So I just want to let you know that this group of ladies has spent a whole lot of time looking at data, digging into data. What do we need to do to help our kids as they're moving forward at this point? So I'm going to let Carrie and Lindsay start, and then I think they're going to hand it off to Mandy and Kelly, and then Julie is going to finish up for us, and you'll get a pretty good picture, K-12, of where we've been standing. Some of the data, we started in December, January, that we've had this a little bit, so they can tell you a little bit about the steps they've already been taking to work on what we're seeing in the data.
I hope that's not contagious when we start doing that. But if so, apologize ahead of time.
We've all been exposed, trust me.
That's right.
That's what they all say.
So Lindsay and I are going to start off with giving you an update about our mid-year MAP scores, and these are tied to our board goals. First few slides are just some reminders and some references that you can look back at again of how to look at MAP data and that kind of thing. But this slide is just a reminder that 2 of our board goals that we're reporting on tonight have to do with the literacy goal, which is looked at in 3rd grade at our meets and masters level with STAR. And so we look up and down at our students K-8 to see how we're progressing to help us with that board goal. And then also a math goal as well. And that's based on what we have to report to the state on third grade meets and masters on STAR. So just a reminder that the MAP test is a nationally normed test, so we're taking this test along with thousands of students across the United States and also across other countries as well. So comparing our students to how other students in that grade level are performing. I know I've shown you this slide pretty much every time I'm up here just to remind you that when we're looking at this test, it is not a try to get to a 100% pass. It's compared to other students in that same grade level. So if your student is scoring in the 50th percentile, that's that yellow band on the bell curve, that means that's performing in the average range for that, that student in that grade. If you're in the green or blue, you're performing above, and then orange and red performing below the average. Instead of a grade, the students are given a RIT score, so we've talked about this before too. The main thing we use this for ourselves is to be able to show growth over a period of time. Okay, this chart, Lindsay and I put this on several slides so that you can use it for reference, but this gives you the average RIT score, student score band or range for reading and for math at the different grade levels. So instead of us flipping back and forth to it, we just put it on each slide so you could see it. And also, this is the typical amount of points on that RIT scale score that we would expect for a child to grow from fall to spring. So as you can see, the older the grade is, the less points that we're really expecting a child to grow because they're further along their path in understanding reading and math skills. Okay, so we'll go through the reading slides. What we did each time was we just put on there beginning of year and then mid-year scores. So looking at reading, this is kindergarten through 8th grade. At the beginning of the year, we had 34% of our students performing above national average. That's that green and blue band. And then here at mid-year, we took these tests, December? So we've progressed even further than that now. But as of December, we moved from 34% to 38% of our students performing above the average national. Okay, so on these slides, we just tried to, there's a lot there, but it's a great comparison for you. You can just read across the grade levels. So on several of these slides, they look just like this. So the way to look at this is, these are still reading. Beginning of the year, if you just look across kindergarten. Our kindergarten students as a whole in our district had an average RIT score of 137 at the beginning of the year. So if you look at that average range up there in the chart, you can see where we were almost into the range. We were like 1 point below at 137, where that's starting at 138 for typical nationwide norms. And then look how far we've gone mid-year. We've gone from 137 as an average in our kindergarten group to 145. So if you do the quick math of that, you can see that we have already met what an entire year's worth of growth with our kids should be, and we were only at mid-year. Does that make sense? That's pretty good growth over one semester.
So the typical growth from fall to spring between 8 and 14, that's from the beginning of the year to the end of the year.
Exactly.
And we're at 8, right? 137 to 145 is 8, but we're there early. We're
at mid-year.
Okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
we were pretty impressed as we went through all of this data. The growth, like I said, is what we're looking at, but then to see that pretty much in every grade level, we have met a year's worth of growth from where we started already at mid-year, which means we can't wait to see what it looks like at the end of the year. So you can see that for each of these grade levels here. And then here's the next slide. I'll just give you a minute to look at these grade levels reading the same information the same way, 4th through 8th grade. And again, just keeping in mind the numbers of amounts of growth points that we would expect, or that the national map test expects gets smaller as the grade gets higher. But only expecting 1 to 2 points of growth for an entire year, like in 8th grade, we made 5 points of growth. So that's way over expectations for a year in 8th grade in reading.
The RIT scores up in the box, is that where they should be at the end of that year?
Yes, it's the regular band from anywhere in there is where a student would be expected to land in that grade level at any time of the year, and then move up however many points from there. So if I'm a 4th grader and my beginning of the year score is, let's say, 198, I would still want to add 4 to 6 points on my unique 198 to stay in that growth range. But that's the typical range for any child in that grade.
What's the number at the very front of the line of colors, like 48th in grade 4?
That would have to do with that bell curve.
Okay.
So if our 5th grade students as a whole are in that nationally compared part of the bell curve of yellow, which is the average range, that compares to that. We're in the 53rd percentile in 5th grade at mid-year compared to every other 5th grade school across the nation. Does that help?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
MAP also gives a fairly accurate projection of STAR, what we can expect, or how we expect our students to perform on the STAR in the spring. This just shows you where those projections fall. So on our reading, STAR reading, looking at that bottom row just as a district, it's projecting that we would have 22% of students who will not meet on the test. So then approximately 78% of our students are expected to get approaches or higher. And then you can see the breakdown by grade level there as well. And we have done some comparisons, like how does this really project? Like, is this accurate? And for the most part, I would say 5% one way or the other. It's a pretty fair prediction to STAR expectation.
And just notice there that they've included 2nd grade in that chart as well. So what if 2nd graders were taking the 3rd grade test also? So those kids are lumped in there as well, because some 2nd graders are performing up into the 3rd grade range already on this test. And so, so our numbers of actual students passing will improve by the end of the year test of here, but also the real STAR test, like Ms. Williamson was saying, it gets close, but a lot of times higher than what this is projecting. Okay, so this is the same information, but now flipping to math. And so you can see again, we have, and you know that math is the area that we're really, we've been pouring into RLA reading instruction the past 2 years. Math, we know, is our focus, and that's where we're implementing new curriculum and things like that next year. This tells the story that we expected for where we're at right now. So in math, beginning of the year, we had 35% of our students, K through 8, performing above the national norm at like a meets master's level. By mid-year, we've made growth. 40% performing at meets or higher, like above average compared to the national norm. And we know we've got work to do, and so what we're looking for again, more than anything with this information here, is are we growing? So you can compare again across. We started below that average RIT scale score in pretty much all of our grade levels. Did we at least get into the range, and how much growth did we make? So you can see here again, In kindergarten, 9 points worth of growth just to mid-year. In second grade, 10 points worth of growth just in one semester.
These are really impressive growth metrics. How does this compare to the growth we saw last year? Are we accelerating growth, or is this kind of on par with what we're used to?
This is more growth than we have seen in the past on this type of information. We've been able to use MAP to show growth throughout the school year. We were impressed with the amount of growth at mid-year.
And I don't think it's really abnormal for mid-year for you to see a decrease in MAP. And so this is encouraging that it is our middle of year where you can expect some decreases, and we're really not seeing that anywhere.
I put you on the spot and ask you what you attribute the impressive growth to?
I think there's a lot of I think our teachers are focusing on it. I think we're finally getting to the point where teachers are looking at individual students, and that becomes hard. Like, you, as a teacher, you want to look at your roster and make sure that you get X% to approaches and whatever, but you're not, we've made a lot of effort to look at the individual student. And I think that has a lot to do with it. And honestly, it's really refreshing when you go on to campuses, and this will kind of hit later on at the end of this, but how teachers are having students own their growth. You walk into classrooms and you see growth charts. You hear kids talking about their scores, like they know their numbers, they know what their goal is, and they're owning it. And it's really refreshing, but I think that has to do with it as well. You know, a kid, we can say, we need you to do better, we want you to do better, work harder, do all the things, and if they don't know what they're aiming for, that individual kid, you know, going from, if a kid makes a 40, okay, let's tell them they made a 40 and your growth should be to a 45, whatever the measure is, instead of, well, you're at a 40 and your classmates at a 70 and we need you all at an 80. Like, that's not attainable to kids. That's pretty defeating. But I think that focus on individual students is the main thing, along with just some really focused attention on Tier 1 instruction.
I'd say even on an anecdotal level, it helps the parents engage the teacher to where, as parents, we know as we're looking at this data on our kids and we're sitting down going over it to know, okay, what do we need to work on as parents at home to have a little bit more focus, because, you know, it gets harder for the parents too, right, with some of the homework and stuff that's going on. So this is impressive, and I know that it's always exciting to see good results and good news. And I know that happens because of a lot of the work that y'all are doing, that teachers are doing. And so the only question I have is how well, it's great for our teachers to see what's happening in their classroom. Do y'all have an outlet or a way in which the teachers can also see how this is happening across the board to kind of help? Because it's hard. We're at that time of the school year where it's a grind, right? And so I think it's nice to see that it's working in their own individual classroom, but also for the teachers to see, hey, you know, we're doing some really impressive things here.
Yeah, and like at the elementary level, and with our instructional coordinators, we've been working on trying to get teachers to visit each other's classrooms. There are some campuses who have set that as a norm for them. Okay, this grade level, you're gonna go watch this grade level today, and then you're gonna get together during the school day. So they'll use their planning time or their, you know, whatever time they work out to where somebody else is watching their kids. And it's a very collaborative, PLC information they use later, but they're going in and they're watching and learning from each other and also giving teaching tips to each other, and that's happening on their own campuses. But also then, like Mandy coordinates with this campus to take teachers over to this campus for really good exemplar lessons and that kind of things. And so at PD, we had our teachers teach each other instead of us just standing up there doing a whole lot of it. And so yeah, you can't be a standalone teacher anymore in this day and time. So
the feedback I've received is a lot from parents. I mean, parents who are involved, but they get this information almost on a one-on-one. I'm assuming sometime through the year with conferences, and it's broken out by certain skills. So if they tank on like recognizing this, and it's that the parent was like, oh, I can fix that, we can do that at home. I know that's not the case in every family, but it does give the parents some tangible things to work on, or know that they need to watch that and get it achieved, so they can move on. So I've got a lot of positive feedback from the MAP testing from parents.
The report they get really is very easy to read. It explains well what those scores mean, and you don't have to be an educator to understand it, to where your kid's falling.
Yeah. Okay, so here's 4th through 8th grade. Of course, these are our tested grade levels in math. And so in several of these areas, again, we weren't quite in that national average of RIT score band when we started, but we've made some gains there as well.
Yeah. I think one area to highlight, you probably all remember conversations about 7th grade math and how it's just a huge question mark, and it's very challenging. And I think that's a good place to highlight here that 7th grade started the year outside of that scale, and at mid-year we've seen the growth to get them within that scale. That's a really challenging grade level, and so that's definitely a win that we can pull from this data. 7th grade. Math also has projected STAR proficiency. This, just like the other data, is evidence of our focus on math and the struggles we have there. So for projected math across the district, at mid-year, it's projected that 37.5% of our students would not meet grade level or approaches, and so 62% would be expected to get approaches or higher in this area if we had STAR at this point.
Yeah. If we took the STAR test in December. That's
In
what
December.
That's what
Let's
the projection
not.
would be.
Let's not.
We're not gonna
Let's
do that.
not. Yeah. Yeah.
The map, just anecdotally, the MAP reports also can give you a chart like this. How would a student score on like the ACT test? And it starts with 2nd grade. We're like, well, of course, most of these children are not going to be passing the ACT test. So you have to take that as a standalone prediction.
So our next steps, of course, this is a little delayed getting to you all just from some circumstances with board meetings and things like that. So as soon as this data hits the hands of our teachers and our instructional staff, our coaches, they hit the ground running on implementing different strategies in their classroom and focusing on individual student growth. So December, they took this. In January, when they come back, they're immediately implementing different things in their classroom. We also just finished benchmark testing, so that's another layer of where we are in assessment, and that's another piece of data that our teachers have already started using to get ready for STAR testing. Again, we already talked about this, but teachers and students use this information to set growth and STAR goals, and the really cool part of that is students are a part of that conversation with their teachers almost on a daily basis. They're having that conversation with their teachers, and it's really neat to see. It's really neat to see that it's on a chart, like I said, in a classroom or in a hallway, but it's even better to hear the student engaged in the conversation and to be, I was talking to a principal the other day, and he was talking about a conversation he heard in the hallway between 2 students, and he said, you would have thought that they were talking about him meeting his PR, beating his PR in a track event. But they weren't talking about that. They were talking about a benchmark score. And that's fun to hear a middle schooler having that conversation with a buddy. He had no idea he was being overheard. And then we also have our teachers that share the report, the MAP report, with parents, and those are also sent home with all of our middle school students. So to keep families engaged in the process.
And the only thing I would add that we forgot to put on here was we just had 2 days of professional development in February a couple weeks ago, and at every grade level, in some fashion, it was focused on, for part of that time, looking at data, MAP data, benchmark data if they already had it, and planning forward for the rest of the semester and for STAR prep. And that happened 3 through 12. So. Okay, we're going to hand it over. Next.
Good evening. We are going to now switch to M class. So I will speak about reading and then Kelly will speak about math. So with MAP, it is a test that is very comprehensive of all of our reading standards. So it assesses grammar, vocabulary, reading comprehension, reading skills, lots of different skills. Now, and it's not timed. M-Class is a timed assessment, and it's looking for those foundational skills. So it's looking at their fluency with decoding and segmenting words and reading words within a passage. So kind of shifting our minds from MAP to M-Class. It's a very different test. We use this in K2 as our required screener for the state of Texas. Again, we're looking at those foundational skills. We also use it to progress monitor students. We also use it as a tool for our kids that are in RTI for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And we also have a Home Connect report that we send home to families afterwards. And M-Class was administered in January. So here is our kindergarten data. So I've included kindergarten from the 24-25 school year, and then I included the 25-26 school year so you can compare to see how we're doing with our new Bluebonnet curriculum. We're very excited to see how kindergarten is progressing in M-Class, and one thing I want to point out is in our new curriculum, we teach sounds first. So kids just learn the sounds that the letters make. They don't learn the letter naming until January. So when we took this assessment, kids hadn't been directly taught the letter names. So even without one of the piece being taught yet, we still saw the same or better gains than we saw last fall. And especially with the letter sounds and decoding, we saw huge gains in our kids. So it's very exciting to see. And you can see our green and blue, that's our at and above range, grew tremendously from the beginning of the year and a little bit better than we did last fall. And then you can see the group in the red, the well below, has decreased, which is what we want to see. So I'm very excited to see what these kids do next year in 1st grade with Bluebonnet. So leading into 1st grade, it is not as great as our kindergarten data, and I think a couple of things there. We have some gaps that we had to fill in, and the 1st grade curriculum went running fast. It was very challenging for our 1st graders. And so since this data has come out, you see we still have a lot of students in the well below, and even the state average, the well below, gets larger at the beginning or middle of year than it does the other grades, because the expectations of the 1st graders at middle of year is extremely high. But we're gonna put some intervention plans in place. I immediately after saw this data put together some plans that I've shared with all the 1st grade teachers digitally, and then I've gone and met with majority of the 1st grade teachers and modeled what they can do in some small groups to target this well below categories, because we definitely want to see that improved by the end of the year. And then moving to 2nd grade, we also saw some really great gains similar to kindergarten. You can see the at and above increased last year at this point. We had 42% in the green and the blue. This year we have 48% in the green and the blue. So that's very exciting to see. And then you'll notice that the group in the red decreased from the beginning of the year. So I just wanted to remind you, I've shown this to you before, but this shows a summary of what the teacher sees. So they see beginning of year, middle of year. Then they drill into individual student data, and they can see exactly how each student performed on every single measure. And the goal increased, like I said, from beginning of year to middle of year. And then here's an individual student's response from a test. So even though the teacher administered this on the computer, the teacher can now pull back up the data and look exactly to see what errors the kid is missing and correct those mistakes. So lots of great information that the teachers can take directly from the test to make improvements in their classroom. So now on to Kelly.
Yes. Okay. Hello. So this year we launched M-Class Math in K through 2. It is a pilot year for it. It's a brand new program. It is not timed like reading is. It is a standardized test, and we give it beginning, middle, and end of year in K through 2, and then we have a 4th grade class at Alcorta that is doing it this year because we are piloting it there also with our program. So it tests foundational math skills, basic skills, counting, geometry, measurement, and data, algebraic thinking. It is also used as a progress monitoring for MTSS if we have students that are on that radar, or if we have teachers that are concerned about students. That is a tool that they can use, which is something we needed desperately in math because we did not have something we used across the district. Every teacher was doing, or every campus was doing something different last year. So we have that now. We also have those Family Connect reports that can go home that gives the parents details on how their students are performing on it. So this is our data for the middle of year. So I put beginning of year and middle of year on there. If you see, our green and blue for the whole district went from 25% to 48%. It is a very short stint test, but it tests specifically for those skills. So it's not something like MAP where they have 42 questions. It's a little more condensed. So for those little brains, they don't have to sit in long segments to take it. Kindergarten grew from 17% at the beginning of the year to 50%, so we saw a lot of growth. First grade went from 21% to 41%. And then our second grade, which this includes, we have one campus in second grade. Every teacher is piloting the math program that goes with this. They went from 34% to 52%, and then our one fourth grade group went from 52% to 56% at the beginning, or from beginning to middle. So again, M-Class gives them data based on their TEKS. So this is a basic report that they will get, and it groups their kids according to how they scored, and then it gives them the actual TEK that was tested on that test. Then it will go into detail just like M-Class reading. It will give them their beginning and their middle of year to compare, and it gives it by each section so they can see how they're doing with each section. So you might have a student that's really good at geometry, but they might not be really strong in algebra, so you can kind of gauge where you need to focus your attention with them. And then it goes even into more detail. With M-Class Math, a teacher can actually pull up the screen. What you're looking at is they can pull up their screen, and if they have a series of students that are missing, like item 10 on this, they can actually pull that question in real time and after the test and pause and say, let's talk about this. So I love that because for math, it's very hard to unteach things when they learn something wrong. And so it's a great conversation piece for our math teachers to be able to say, why do you think this? Or why did you, what did you do? And have those math conversations with their kids. So I love, and my teachers see the value in this. M-Class is owned by Amplify, which is our new math curriculum that we're going to. And this is actually something that they can see in real time when their kids are working in Desmos Math. So it's going to give them real-time feedback in addition to this. So I'm really excited to see next year what comes from this. But yes, do you have any questions? This is, oh, I've got one more, sorry. One more. This is another detailed map. This is actually, we'll group them, and then it gives them a small group instruction mini lesson that they can do at a table with their students based on their strengths and weaknesses. So it gives, M-Class gives a lot of details, but it also gives teachers back time because it gives them things that they can incorporate into their lessons without them having to go and look and dig for things to do.
I don't have any questions, but I want to thank all of you for equipping our teachers, providing resources, providing training, providing expectations, providing opportunities for them to work together, and providing them this feedback. There's a lot of really hopeful data that y'all shared tonight, and I'm super excited to see our end of year results in ELA and in math. Thank y'all so much for sharing this with us tonight, and absolutely fantastic work in your department, but also in those classrooms. It's really astounding. Some of these jumps are just incredible.
Good.
Okay, I'm Julie Wilson here with for early childhood, And I get to talk about a different assessment. So you heard about MAP and in-class. I'm going to talk about CLI. We talked about this before. You guys get board notes on all of our updates. But just a reminder that CLI is the commissioner's choice. It is from the University of Texas at Houston. And this is like, they are like the guru of early childhood. So a lot like, I think it was MAP, M-class. Y'all just did M-class? Yes. Sorry. Not my world, but I will learn. It also gives us specified activities to do with kiddos immediately and parent opportunities also. So a couple things, it's administered 3 times a year. We are about to begin actually our 3rd wave. So again, just like them, we finished in January for the 2nd wave, and each wave goes over 4 different domains. When we do collect data one-to-one, it is a computerized test on some things, and then some of them are teacher observables. We do give 24 different assessments to kiddos, which each of those is a different skill. Much like the elementary grade, they're focusing a little bit more on math. We also did the same thing and added some more assessments on into our school readiness plan based on the pre-K guidelines and our early learning outcomes for Head Start, so that we are more aligned with our kindergarten report card. We do reevaluate that every year to be sure what we are assessing is matching what kindergarten is also doing, even though the measures are a little bit different. They are apples to oranges in our data, but the skill sets are very similar. Okay, so what do we do with it? Very similar to them. We have parent conferences. We just finished up home visits where we're setting goals with families. We are setting goals with teachers. We're having PLCs talking about data, individual kids, planning small groups, and also our February professional development also was geared based on our campus data. So a couple things I'm just focusing on 2 different areas. Our main areas were our lowest areas for our kiddos, which was our language and literacy domain, letter, sound, correspondence, and also recognizing half the letters of the alphabet. I love that they're doing sounds first. That is in my early childhood heart, that sounds get us to reading faster than the name of a letter A. So I'm very happy to hear that. So these are our 2 areas of growth, and I am happy to report that all 24 assessment areas did show growth. Our greatest gains were in our rapid letter naming, with 26% growth from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year for our Head Start population, okay? The second part, the blue part, is our entire campus of Long. It includes Head Start pre-K, which is also our 3s and our 4s, and our KLT students. So you'll see that the whole campus had a gain of 31%, and both of those areas were our greatest gain for the middle of the year. In letter, sound, correspondence, we didn't have as much of a growth. One thing about this test that I think is important to note is there's only an option of 12. And so on the CLI assessment, they have it aligned with TEA, and so there's only 12 options, so our growth is going to be a little bit smaller when you have rapid letter naming and you are having 26 times 2 choices. Sorry, my brain is fine. But we did show growth in both areas, and it is similar to where we were at the end of the year last year. This is the beginning of the year to the end of the year growth, and so we are a tiny bit behind 50%, but typically for 3 and 4-year-olds, February is a beautiful time. You come back from Christmas and you've grown, it's spring, there's love in the air, there's all sorts of things going on, and so we make great growths in the spring, so I have no doubt our data will go forward, especially with how we're diving in through PLCs and planning time together. Any questions for me? Okay, thank y'all.
Just wanted to say thank you for all you do with our little ones. Thank you. Looks like we're on track.
Yeah, we're getting it. Thank you.
Thank you, team. The next item is item on 8B is a call for quality school update by Jay Ashby. I keep wanting to make you a doctor, Jay. I know you would, in our hearts.
Good evening. We're going to be talking about some things you've heard about, but we've got some updates. But I think, it's appropriate that we're getting ready for baseball season, and I think we're all preparing for those West Coast trips for the Rangers. And if you're an Astros fan, with our late hour, we're getting ready for baseball season, right? Right? Okay. So, 1882 is Senate Bill 1882 and a call for quality schools is something that you guys have heard about for well over a year. And so I'm going to go over a few things that you guys have heard before, so I'll go through that quickly, but then I'll get to what the actual updates are, because some exciting things have happened, and we've got some exciting things ahead of us. So just a reminder that the North Star goal drives a lot of our strategies, and our call for quality schools is part of that. And so as we search, we have searched through this process for some high quality school ideas and high quality options for students, it's always to try to increase that number of percentage of our students in A or B seats. And so the part of that process, and this is our kind of our 4 bullets for why we went for a call for quality schools, is trying to increase the percentage of students, adding bold, innovative school models that meet our students' needs and our community's interests, engaging in the community in the process of understanding what type of options they're interested in, and then maximizing the opportunities that are available through the state, like a Senate Bill 1882 partnership and the financial and accountability benefits that come with that. So we've talked about how this fits within our district strategy. Just a reminder that we applied for a grant, and that grant funds the work towards establishing some processes to repeat this call for quality schools process for years to come, even without the grant. A reminder that while we did have a grant to support this work this year, we can still enter into a Senate Bill 1882 partnership and initiate a call for quality schools without a grant support. A reminder of what the partner categories that can be with a Senate Bill 1882 partnership. It can be with colleges and universities, nonprofit organizations, government entities, and charter organizations. And just a reminder of that structure is the district authorizes the partner to operate, but the district retains oversight and accountability. And just a reminder that there is significant financial, significant funds that come to districts when they engage and enter into an 1882 partnership. So our first call for quality schools, and we'll go over the timeline in just a second, just a reminder of some of the things that we took from the Pathways to Possibilities conversations and some internal conversations about areas of interest and need in adding those high quality options to our district. Early learning, advanced academics, and high quality elementary school models were our focuses for what we were looking for. And we were looking for partners that can provide strong leadership and staffing plans and align with some of the strengths that we have within our district to enhance what we offer at a particular campus. So here is our timeline. I will quickly go through that. The bill was passed in 2017. The very first time it was discussed in AISD was in July 2023. There's been board meetings where this has been discussed initially in October 2024. That Pathways to Possibilities tour provided a lot of the community feedback on some of the interests and desires that our community has for some of the options that they want that were incorporated into this call for quality schools. We applied for that grant. Were awarded that grant last June. The board passed the ELA local policy, creating the structures to continue to make sure that we're doing this with fidelity and meeting all TEA and state guidelines. We finalized those priority areas shortly after that, and then we began to have significant conversations with our local institution of higher education partners and others, and we are continuing to do that to this day. In October, so in the fall, we launched our call for quality schools and opened up that formal process asking for applications. So in a call for quality schools, partners can apply to implement a school model and partner with the district in this way. We convened a call for quality schools evaluation committee that included a lot of different members of our team and a community member. And then we received one application in our very first call for quality schools from Cisco College. In November, we had an evaluation committee meeting where we evaluated that Cisco application using the TEA rubric. It's a very thorough process that took lots of training for that committee, but it was a very good process. We feel really we feel like the training was provided by our technical advisor was extremely helpful and productive in trying to understand what it takes to evaluate the quality of an application from one of these partners. You will see in the bold at the bottom, though, just to tell you up front before we go into what was in the application, that the evaluation committee recommended to the superintendent not to pursue an 1882 partnership with Cisco at this time, but to explore other forms of partnership with them and with other entities moving forward. We're going to give you a little bit more detail about that, but just a reminder, this is the entire timeline of an 1882 district authorizing process. Because we did not recommend to move forward with that, we stopped in the middle, and that's okay. That is the purpose of this process, is not to just do this and then go with whatever comes in. It's to evaluate and take all of the information and conversations into account to decide whether we need to move forward or not. So we did not get to the point where we then recommended to the superintendent, who would recommend to you, to enter into contract negotiations in our very first call for quality schools. So our findings from this call, just a quick overview of that committee, and you can see many of them are here this evening. We thank Catherine Mitchell, a community member, for devoting her time. She's the Director of Education at the Grace, as being our community representative for this and going through all the trainings. But this group represents a lot of different areas within our organization, and just a reminder that a lot of the training was provided and aligned with all TEA requirements and their rubrics for this process. And so what this committee did, and here's a very high level summary of that, is we evaluated the committee calibration. So there's a tool that TA has that was very thorough to go through every page of the over 50-page application that Cisco provided to evaluate those things, score the applications, and then after that, we conducted a very thorough capacity interview with their entire application team and our entire committee team. That was a fantastic process. There was a ton of great dialogue, a lot of conversations about things that we like about it, things that we have concerns, and some of those were shared. And it was a very productive conversation. It was not a okay, we're gonna ask you questions and you respond, and then all right, have a good day. It was like hours of conversations, and while we did not eventually reach a recommendation, we are already having conversations with Cisco about the idea moving forward that I'll speak about here in just a second. Just a quick overview of what is in the application. So there's a narrative proposal. I mentioned it was over 50 pages. So there's general information. They have to describe their educational program. They have to talk about their governance, operating plan, and capacity. There's a significant financial plan, a part of this. And they also provide attachments to support some of those things. And in that capacity interview, that's when applicants have the opportunity to discuss this more thoroughly outside of just their application. So Cisco College's application, they proposed something called the Cisco College Wrangler Academy. It was a new and innovative school with enrollment across all AISD high schools. The purpose of that was for all students that would earn an associate's degree or 60 college credit hours, but also on top of that, because had some very fantastic and creative ideas about engaging in work-based learning and project-based learning experiences, especially as they approach their junior and senior year. Some of the exciting points, actually before I get to the exciting points, that first sentence is super important. The evaluation committee was so impressed with the work that Cisco College did. It was, we were really blown away with the creativity, the thoroughness of the idea, and there was so much about the idea that we liked. Some of the exciting things that we did like was it was unique, but also strategically aligned to the partnership we already have with them for our associate's degree program. It was an additional layer and a creative avenue for a targeted group of students to receive even more benefit through Cisco College on top of the associate's degree program that we are already partner with them on. And the points for pause and deeper consideration was there was a lot of conversation around what the 9th and 10th grade experience would look like, and there was some mutual interest in having some additional time to intentionally think that through with Cisco College. That last bullet, the partnership structure, there was shared mutual interest in exploring this concept beyond the confines of the 1882 structure. So one of one of the requirements for an 1882 partnership is that it has to be its own school, its own TEA number, and so this would create a new graduating entity within AISD. That is a big deal, right? And so what we are, one of the reasons why we paused, did not recommend to move forward, is we wanted to talk through with them more details about what this could look like before jumping to something as bold as that. And so they still have interest in applying in future Call for Quality schools around this idea, but there is certainly a lot of shared interest in seeing what a Wrangler Academy idea might look like without having to go as far as creating a new school, and what it would look like being a program that is in addition to what is already happening with our associate's degree for current Abilene High, Cooper, and Adams students. So next steps in future planning, Call for Quality Schools 1.0. So we're reflecting on this. I really feel strongly about the systems and processes that we have built, the training that the committee has been a part of, and our ability to do this without grant support moving forward. I have no doubt that we would be able to replicate this as part of our own internal processes year after year if we have the interest to do that. We have had some great conversations with all of our partners, our local colleges and universities around this idea, and we have significant interest in continuing to do that. And we've also developed a real good idea of some areas that we want to continue to explore, not just within the 1882 process, but outside of that, in areas like advanced academics, early learning, and continuing to look at elementary specialization and high quality options there. So what's next? Continuing those conversations. We have some plans to restart those conversations with ideas for the next cycle, and we are going to, are still receiving grant support, and one of the things that our technical advisor and I are working on is researching what some of those advanced academic models are looking like, whether they are 1882 partnerships in the state of Texas or not, as ways to cultivate ideas with potential partners in the future. And we are continuing to look at 1882 examples in the state. In fact, we just went down to San Antonio and saw one as part of an SGS lab just recently. And so I think that we have the ability to sustain this process locally, but one thing that the last thing I think that is worth mentioning is if we ever do this process locally without grant support, and we do find a partner, for example, if we do that in a summer, I'm not saying it might be this summer, but if we do it in the summer process, the summer timing for a Call for Quality schools, and we enter into a partnership, we recommend to the board that we enter into contract negotiations, and then after the contract negotiations happen, we recommend entering into partnership, and you guys approve that winter, we would have the ability to apply for a grant that would be able to, if we get it, fund the startup of that campus. And so we would still have the opportunity to get some grant support, even if we run a locally supported process. So I know that was a lot of information, but that is all I have, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Barring any, go ahead.
Well,
Sorry.
I do have a question, because what I'm understanding is, because we stepped into this exploration of 1882 and asked you all to do that because we just needed to learn more about it and explore the option. So you found out, am I correct in that you found out that we could use this 1882 idea for a program and not necessarily a campus, or did I hear that wrong?
No, you cannot do, an 1882 partnership cannot be just a program.
Okay.
It has to be, it's a standalone school with its own TEA number. And so that is one of the things that caused pause with this conversation. We actually did not have a ton of intention of exploring high school options for this, but we did leave it open to that because we wanted to go through this process and see if we don't ever get any applications, we can't really go through the process. And so I'm very glad that we did, because we were able to, one, spark up a great conversation with Cisco that is ongoing, but also, we learned, the implications of, adding a school, and how that does complicate things.
I just want to commend you on your ability to dive into extremely complicated, new stuff, processes and rules and regulations, and make sense of it and understand it with precision. And not only that, but communicate it to us in administration, also to the board, and then build out a process that is very systematic and, easy, as easy as possible for us to understand and like you said, replicate. So thanks for all your work on this. I know, when you just hear about it in here, it seems, a little simpler than it really is. And I know you've spent dozens and dozens and dozens of hours just understanding it and processing.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Q. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
Next up, Ms. Allison Sims, Associate Superintendent for the Development of Human Resources, on Policy Update 126.
Yes. Good evening, and I know you are excited to hear all of the updates on policy that are occurring from the 89th legislative session. This was a large policy update. If you looked at your board packet, you noticed that. So these were some of the things that were in that board packet. Quite an extensive number of policies in here. So just a little bit about our process. When the TASB updates were released in late November, and we set up a timeline for all of us to review. We took a little longer on this timeline because of the large number of policies there were to review. And here we are tonight with the first reading of these policies and hopefully recommendations at the March board meeting. So there were over 140 legal policies in Update 126. You will be glad to know that I did not list those in this presentation tonight. So we're just going to move straight on to the local policies. First group are local governance policies. The first one is BE Local. It has the rules about the 72-hour posting requirement changed to 3 business days. And also voting must be a record vote, no voice voting, large group voice voting is allowed anymore, which are already things that we have adapted to in our practice. Also, rules about public participation, emphasis that public comment shall be at the beginning of the board meeting, and also public comment will be limited to 3 minutes and adjusted for large numbers still. That part is still in there. Local policies that have to do with business and support services, CJ Local. A lot of language in our local policy and in legal policy about DEI activities. This specifically talks about DEI activities with our contractors, and that any violation of this shall result in contract termination. And we are also not allowed to give employment assistance to contractors if the contractor has engaged in sexual misconduct regarding a minor or student. Basically, the people that come in and perform services, outside people who perform services for our district, have to follow our rules when they're in our schools. So. Also, just a little bit about background checks. This policy really only had a subtopic name change. And we still require background checks for all contracted service providers and follow requirements to report child abuse to CPS. This is for our contractors. They have to go through fingerprinting to be able to be on our campuses to perform the work that they perform. Building grounds equipment management, just some required displays, also changed a little bit about with a subtopic, but also in CLE legal, there is a subsection that talks about the 10 Commandments, and I thought that was important to kind of point out that that's the legal side of things, but it's also in this policy. A little bit about cybersecurity. The district must have a plan to secure our cyber infrastructure and against a cyber attack, and then also must have a training program. And we must notify all involved of a security breach or a cybersecurity incident. Safety and security. The district shall ensure that private spaces in district facilities are appropriately designated in accordance with law as required by the Texas Women's Privacy Act.
And just a little side note there, that this act is the act that requires individuals to use restrooms, locker rooms, changing areas in public buildings, including schools, universities, and government facilities that correspond to their sex assigned at birth. So that's us taking that law into our local policy, making sure that we are following that. Facilities construction, we have already changed this policy back in September. This just reflects the changes that reflects this in the update. Policies about personnel. Very interesting that our talks a lot about personal services provided by administrators to perform with a business. If they work for an outside business that has an interest in the district, they really cannot do that. An administrator cannot do that without seeking permission from the board. We have also put in some protections for any administrator that has an outside job that they might do. We have a form that they fill out in the HR office just to ensure that there is not a conflict of interest there and that we're following this policy. Leaves and absences, this policy clarifies how we calculate a daily rate for a contract employee, and then also allows employees who are on FMLA related to pregnancy or the adoption of a child to opt out of FMLA running concurrently with paid leave. So now our employees have an option for that. Non-renewal, added language to the reasons to non-renew a term contract to include DEI activities and assigning any activity to a student that is prohibited by law, meaning any activity that has to do with DEI. Lots of changes in the grievance process, not just for employees, but also you'll see it again later for students and just for the public. It clarifies the steps for filing a grievance and also adds language that an employee who has a grievance filed against them must be notified and be given opportunity to respond to the complaint in writing. Employee standards of conduct, it added a section prohibiting instruction or guidance on programming prohibited by law, which basically talks about DEI duties or assignments, and prohibition of assisting a district student with social transitioning, including providing information about social transitioning to students. Next group is our policies on instruction. This policy is a new policy. It requires teachers to submit course syllabi or instructional plans each semester to the district for the district website. For our district, thankfully, our curriculum and instruction department does a great job of putting together what they call the DDCDs. You may hear them talk about that. That's the district developed curriculum documents. This fulfills that requirement so that parents can have access to what their students are learning each 9-week period. Information about instructional resources, it requires a notice posted on the district's website stating that a parent is entitled to review instructional materials and added requirements to the instructional material review process. A little bit about special ed and audio video monitoring, mostly just changes in language to clarify, like removing the wording of self-contained and changing the wording to special ed classroom regarding the rules and having video audio monitoring in those classrooms. Local policies about students. Again, a lot on parents' rights and responsibilities. This establishes a parent portal on the district's website through which parents may submit comments to campus administrators, district administrators, and the board. And we currently have this available under Ask Abilene ISD, already up and running. It's been there for quite a while, so even we're a little ahead of the game here. FEF Local involves release time for students, allowing students to be able to be released for certain religious activities provided by an outside entity. There's lots of rules about that outside entity not being able to come into the school to do these religious services, but also outlines requirements for a student to be released for such a course. FFAC about medical treatment. This allows administration of medication by a school nurse under certain guidelines, and including parent consent for the student to be treated. Student welfare and crisis intervention. This requires teachers and aides to be notified as soon as safely possible when a threat is made against a campus, to include the nature of the threat and details to ensure student safety, so that all are informed as to what is going on as soon as they possibly can be. Student welfare and student safety requires the district to notify parents no later than 1 business day after an employee first suspects that a criminal offense has been committed against the parent's child. So, responsibility on the district to notify parents if there's a concern such as that. Child abuse and neglect reporting changed the requirement for reporting suspicion of child abuse for a district employee from 48 hours to 24 hours. Also something that we are already making sure that our administrators and our teachers are following. Information about student rights and responsibilities, and again, the complaints and grievances in here. It changes the filing deadline for students and parents. It's now 90 days from the date a parent first knew of the reason for the complaint, and 30 calendar days from the date on which the district provided information regarding how to file a grievance. Other just procedural clarifications on grievances, and allows 20 calendar days for the district to respond to grievances. Student discipline, it changes language regarding video and audio recording and required notices. Just a few little procedural things in that category. Finally, community and governmental relations. Public complaints, again, the grievance filing deadlines and response timelines have been changed, and again, written notification to an employee who's had a complaint filed against them in writing, and then they have the opportunity to respond in writing. Also, conduct on school premises. This changes language regarding handguns from a Texas license to, in general, a handgun license, which is also not allowed on school premises. And I think that gets us to the end. I know I went really quickly. There were a lot of policies, but I am happy to answer any questions that I can. All right.
Thank you so much for that update.
So we're hearing it now. We'll be voting in April. Okay. Next item is item D, 8D, budget calendar. Ms. Jennifer Hines, our Chief Financial Officer, joins us at the podium.
Good evening.
Hello.
All right. It's hard to believe it's that time of year again. But we are going to dive right in and just take a look at this year's budget calendar. There are a few things that are going to look a little different this year, but the majority of our workshop schedule will be the same. February, normally the budget calendar would come to the board for review, so we're close to February, 5 days off. Staff assessment is already ongoing, and that'll continue to happen through June. March, this is where the change is. We're going to start this year with a zero-based budget for all campuses and departments, as well as at the district level. There's a few reasons for that, but the biggest one is to make sure where we're spending our money aligns with our goals and we're aligning our resources with what we need to be. We don't want to just keep doing the same old thing that we've done every year, spending our money the same way unless it's really getting us the result we're looking for. So that's happening this month, and then in April we'll start reviewing workbooks, sort of set a non-payroll allocation for budgets for departments and campuses, and then I'll start kind of working through the district's non-payroll budget. And then looking at some projections and factors. We'll start budget meetings with all budget owners. And then in April, we'll get preliminary tax values. That's going to be really important for us this year. So one of the things you'll hear on my first budget workshop, probably April, May, is how this year will be a really important year that we kind of not only recalibrate with the zero-based budget, But depending on what our taxable values come in and how far we're compressed, it'll be really, really important to think long-term. So we're gonna start doing a few more projections years down the road, like with the decisions we're making right now, what would that be in the future? Because we're less than a year out from our next legislative session. And there's a lot of things that could change. We're already hearing some rumblings of things that are kind of being considered and that we may see in the next session. So I think probably more now than ever, it's really important to think stability and long-term. So May, June, July, August, we'll all have budget workshops. We'll start with kind of the budget overview, enrollment, attendance, just like normal, and we'll talk through some of those strategies that I just mentioned. Then we'll go into expenditures. Revenue will happen in July, just because that's, we have a clearer picture, July and August. And then August we'll get down to a final look at our budget, tax rate, and things of that nature. So just kind of to keep this in mind, some of these I just talked about, but really continuing to make sure our staffing is aligned to our enrollment, and especially, you know, making sure that's true for years to come to keep us stable. Again, legislative action and funding outlook, already keeping those things in mind and planning for multiple scenarios. The property value growth and the tax compression will be a really big one and a really important one for us this year. And then obviously economic changes, we see them, you know, in our daily lives ourselves. So, and it's certainly no different here. There's been considerable changes within the SHARS program. Again, rates have continued to decline on what we're earning on our money. So those affect revenue, and then as well as, you know, inflationary factors on expenditures. So keeping all of those in mind as we're going into budget season this year, it's kind of where we're starting and taking a good look. So any questions I can answer about the budget calendar or our timeline?
Can you explain what a zero-based budget is?
Absolutely. So essentially, in years past, we've started with an allocation, either a department allocation starts with a dollar amount, or a campus budget is built on a per pupil. We take in their enrollment and their attendance factors, and they are funded at a per pupil amount based on their ADA, because that's how we're funded. This year, we're asking everyone to look at their expenditures and essentially build your budget. You don't have an allocation, build it up from zero, start at zero. What do you need to effectively run your campus or department or district? To not only, obviously, we got to pay the lights, we got to pay the insurance. Some of those things we're not going to have much give on, but are we utilizing all of our resources in the most effective way possible? So it's really being very finite in detail and starting with no allocation. This is what I need to build my campus, to build my budget, to run my campus, to run my department. There's really kind of three areas we're going to look at, and these are non-negotiables. I have to have these. These are the next level that can really kind of get me to, I really kind of need these two, but some of them I might could give on. And then there's a third level of, this would absolutely bring me every result I need. Maybe I've never done it before, maybe I have done it before. And then we're going to start weeding out, can we afford all these? Is there something that I've done in the past that doesn't work anymore that I can invest that money somewhere else? So it really is starting at zero and building up. Mm-hmm.
Has that been done in the past?
Not to my knowledge, it has not. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you for putting together that really good plan.
Yes, sir.
Now, we'll move to business items requiring action, which is item A of section 9.
All right, you have a document in your board book called the Certification of Unopposed Candidates. I need the board to vote to accept that certification.
Is there a motion regarding the certification of unopposed candidates?
I move to accept the certification of unopposed candidates for Abilene ISD Board of Trustees, place 4, 5, and 6 as presented.
Second?
We'll now take a roll call vote. Taylor Tidmore?
Yes.
Cindy Earls?
Yes.
Angie Wiley? Yes. Rodney Goodman?
Yes.
Blair Schrader?
Yes.
Danny Wheat?
Yes.
Bill Enriquez?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. And so let's go on to item 9B, order of cancellation of an election.
Since all places are unopposed, the board may order the cancellation of the election, and needs to do so because there's no reason to spend the money on an election when all places are unopposed. In order to make that happen, there is an order of cancellation to be signed by the president and secretary. It is in your board book, and I would ask that this board please approve or pass the order of cancellation of this election.
I move to issue an order of cancellation of election for Abilene ISD Board of Trustees, place 4, 5, and 6. Do we have a second?
Second.
Let's take a roll call vote. Rodney Goodman?
Yes.
Blair Schrader?
Yes.
Danny Wheat?
Yes.
Angie Wiley, yes. Cindy Earls?
Yes.
Bill Enriquez?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Did I say Taylor Tidmore?
You did not.
Taylor
But
Tidmore?
yes.
Okay, it does pass 7-0. Let's move to item C, renaming Thomas Elementary. Dr. Kuhn?
Dr. Waldron?
Oh, sorry, Dr. Waldron has some background on this.
Thank you, Ms. Wiley, members of the board. This will probably be pretty quick. I sent you a board note last Friday about this very topic. It is in board policy that it is your job to consider the name of a facility. While this is not changing the human that Thomas Elementary is named after, the building that is currently called Thomas Elementary, it is changing the elementary part. So we are not changing the fact that it is named after Sam Thomas. All we're doing is asking you to approve the change to Sam Thomas Learning Center. Similar to we changed Mann STEAM Academy from Mann Middle School. The same idea, Learning Center is appropriate for what's about to happen. And just so that there's awareness, what's about to happen is that the programs that live at Hartford Professional Learning Center are going to be moving to a home, a permanent home where they can operate in a more cohesive way. It's all indoors. It's a little bit more updated and secure facility also. And the name also connects to the longevity of what may ever live at Sam Thomas. Learning Center allows for us the flexibility because we have flexed to support students in different ways with innovative programs, and that may happen at this facility. Hard to predict the future, so this is a broad term that applies to what we're doing. I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
Is there a motion regarding renaming Thomas Elementary?
I move to change the name of Sam Thomas Elementary School to Sam Thomas Learning Center as presented. Second.
Let's take a roll call vote. Bill Enriquez?
Yes.
Taylor Tidmore?
Yes.
Cindy Earls?
Yes.
Rodney Goodman?
Yes.
Angie Wiley? Yes. Blair Schrader?
Yes.
Danny Wheat?
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Dr. Walden, for the information. Let's now move to item 9D, amendment of the budget for Vader funds. Back to Ms. Hines.
Yes, ma'am. So we're gonna just do a quick review. Road to the Vader started in June 2025 when we selected our efficiency auditor, which was Bailey. And then we progressed forward, looking at property values, tax rates, things like that into July and August, and calling the Vader in August. Then we heard from Bailey in September. October was a busy month with numerous presentations and information sessions about the Vader and what that meant for our community and our district. November, it passes, and we immediately got to work with the first resource utilization planning meeting with a focus group and the executive team. And then that went to a district-wide survey, and then in January, a final plan meeting to finalize the results we had from the prior meetings in the prior months before. And then February, I did a deep dive into the budget and looked at everything, and here we are in March doing an amendment. So I just want to kind of touch base quickly on the 5 areas we talked about having where the VADER would impact us, and recruiting, retaining more teachers, possibly reducing class sizes, eliminating our current budget deficit, stopping the cycle of deferred necessary school maintenance, addressing our bus fleet, and then also developing new instructional programs. So here's a look at where our budget is right now. So with the VADER funds, it's a little over $11 million. Once things kind of shook out with state values, things like that. And then amending that budget for the additional revenue we're going to expect to receive. I tried to get it in big, large groups of the priorities we've identified, but I want to spend just a second talking about 2 particular ones. The eliminate budget deficit is right at $4.4 million. We adopted a $3.4 million budget deficit. Right now, if you look on the left-hand side at the bottom of the page where it's talking about summary of changes in budgeted fund balance, the majority of that is the rolled POs. So I want to just put this, just a quick reminder of why that change is in there. At the end of the fiscal year in August, if there was something that was already requisitioned and ordered, but that service had not been rendered or the good was not received, it cannot be paid. So that PO rolls into the next year. So essentially, when our audit finished in August of 2025, we probably had $1.2 million that went into fund balance that we had not spent, right? So those POs roll to the new fiscal year, and after the audit's complete, everything's verified, that number becomes part of what we would consider would be paid out of fund balance because that year's done. Okay, so it's accounting. It's a little hard to understand sometimes, but I wanted to kind of put that caveat in. The other one I want to talk about is the budget reserve. So it's interesting how it's going to happen with when the timing of when we receive the funds. The local funds we're already receiving. We're taxing at the rate that was passed. That's the money we're getting in right now. The state side will take a little bit of time to catch up. So I looked just the other day. Fiscal year 2025 has not even finalized yet, and we're almost to a new school year. So the likelihood of us seeing those state funds, it could be well into next spring after this fiscal year has ended. Okay, so it's really important to not get us in a pickle with cash flow. So we have specifically addressed things this year that we can, knowing next year, okay, that we're going to be seeing the revenue actually coming in our bank account, not just on our books, but in our bank account, to where we can further address those 5 priority areas. Does that make sense? I wanted to make sure we talk just a little bit about that because one of the things that will happen if we spend all of the $11 million right now, then likely that budget deficit may not be completely eliminated because we would be waiting on some cash flow, if that makes sense. Any questions about that? And here's just another area. Eliminating the budget deficit was a huge chunk of that. $11 million seems like a very large amount, and it is, but in a $150 million budget, it goes very quickly. So that's one of the reasons taking care of our deficit for this year, putting some in reserve so we don't overextend ourselves on cash flow, planning for the next year, and continuing to address our areas. Any questions?
When you talk about reserve, are you talking about fund balance? That money's gonna be dropped over to fund balance?
It will.
And also, are we expected, in March of each year, that we're gonna be hearing an update on the Vader funds so that they don't drop into general budget and just kind of disappear on us? Or how are we gonna deal with that long term?
So we could do it two ways. They essentially will become a part of our regular general fund budget. There's always, though, if that's something you wanted to hear, I can always pull what we're getting specifically from the golden and copper pennies, which is what passed on the state side. Now those, on the state side. On the local side, what we receive will depend on our tax rate next year. The other side to that on the state side will also depend on if we go into recapture. And if we do, the golden pennies are safe, but what we earn in tier 2 on the copper pennies from the Vader are subject to recapture. So it's gonna be a little different scenario than we've ever been in. But all of that detail I can provide to you.
I'd like to see that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think we owe it to the voters who we went to ask for certain things, and we talked
Sure.
about, I want to be able to give a proper accounting.
Sure.
So the budget reserve, that almost 3 million, is that, okay, so we're required to keep a general fund balance, a certain amount on hand.
Right.
But would this stay above that required amount?
It would.
Because we know it's not gonna be applying to this year's budget or any other year except for the years past.
That's right.
So we can't classify that, we don't need to be classifying that as our required fund balance.
No, it's gonna go into just general fund balance. Now, what'll happen too is, to keep in mind, we're in March and our fiscal year ends in August. Some of the funds, the biggest chunk of these funds, we probably won't see until well after that ends. Well, in July, August, you're gonna probably start considering a compensation plan, right? So these numbers also vary. What you decide there also really plays in and factors in to what our reserve is in fund balance, what our budget looks like as far as revenue. So that's a little bit of that. You kind of get in a pickle where if you're not putting that towards salary, it's really something that you need to spend in this year. And that window is closing because we're so far in the year, or because we won't get the cash flow from the funds later until the year is closed. So it's kind of one of those things where obviously if something comes up that the district needs to do, God forbid, something happens, but it does. We had 3 significant gas projects this year that were obviously not planned and unanticipated for. That can cover some of that. We know we have that cushion this year, but we haven't committed it to anything specific right now, just to make sure we're not overextending ourselves.
Did you just say that every Vader money we get in has to be spent within that year? Like we can't be saving it?
No, we can. It's just the timing of this first year.
Okay.
Because the election and then when they will do our settle up for state funds, it takes such a long time for them to kind of catch up on the funding formula. We just won't see the money in our actual bank account. It will be accounted for on our books, like as a due from state. So like the state owes us that money. They won't actually send it though until much later.
So it's really just a cash flow, making sure what you've got going in doesn't get expired by what's going out at the right timeline.
It is.
And I do appreciate having, being good stewards of it and not wanting to spend every penny right now, because that could come back to bite us. And I think that's, the places that do that have a hard time making the math work as things roll on. And so I appreciate that approach.
Another question in regards to your recruit and retain. This is going to be, as we recruit those new individuals into the district, are these funds going to support that, or is that going to drop over into the general budget and then we start anew again? That's one
one part of the question. If we are going to maintain that, are we not gonna get into the same problem we did with the other funding that we had in the past, where we hired all the individuals, and then all of a sudden the money's not there?
Sure, and that's one of the exact reasons for the reserve this year. It essentially comes in altogether in the general fund bucket. So that part of recruit and retain, as we've worked through the funding matrix and looked at the enrollment in all of our campuses, but not only in just campuses and in specific programs that are maybe funded at a higher rate, like special ed, some of those things. The Vader funding, we can track separately of exactly what we're getting from those pennies. But as far as how it comes in from either the tax collections or the state, it's no different than any other funding. So it all goes in the same bucket, but it's really important, I think, why I'm always, I will always be on the cautious side. I don't know if y'all figured that out about me, but I am always the one that wants to make sure we're planned for worst case scenario. That's why the matrix has been so important for that recruit retain. And also why whatever happens in compensation will be really important. As soon as you elevate someone's pay, it's compounding, right? The next year you elevate someone's pay, you're paying on a higher pay. So that's one of the things of putting some back in reserve, making sure we're staffing for our enrollment is really important, where we're not getting back exactly where we were and having to lay people off. These are not lay people off, excuse me, absorb positions as people leave. Or something worse, I mean, there's been districts that have gone through RIFs because they can't afford to keep people employed. That's not where we want to be. So making sure we're conservative with the funds that come in. That specific problem with the ESSER funds, I think that's really, really why we've watched very closely who is funded in a grant fund in that position, and making sure we can have long-term stability if that grant were to end or if the funding were to be cut. That's another piece that we've watched pretty close.
The $7 million from the state that we probably won't get well into next school year, is that going to be repeated every year, or is that just a one-time thing because of the Vader was in November? Or
it will be, when it's paid out,
yeah,
it'll catch up. We'll have a 1 year of delay, and then next year our payment plan will be like, we'll kind of be on a normal schedule of this is what our golden and copper pennies are, and our payments when they start will be based on the actual. It just takes a little bit to catch up the first time.
I kind of have a question I'm a little afraid to ask, but it's kind of real talk. So we have this huge, big percentage being used to eliminate a budget deficit. So what is our exercise? I mean, I know that this is, so we don't have to spend that, we don't want to spend that much money of our Vader what you said, our additional income on a budget deficit. So we're still in the process of finding a way to have a balanced budget, because
we are.
Or are we going to forever subsidize our budget a certain amount and let that be okay? I need to kind of know what our philosophy is. So what our options of philosophy are.
Sure. So I think obviously the final say is with you. I would always recommend that we live within our means and try to get as close to balanced as we can.
Agreed.
I think that's why one of the biggest reasons why we're doing zero-based budget this year. We're kind of in a really cool place we have the extra funds from the Vader passage. We're going to see those every year. But we also have this looming thing over us of if we're going to be recapture, which changes our landscape. It's not all bad. It will max out our tier 1 funding, but it will affect, if we go into recapture, whatever it plays out to be, it will affect not only our tier 2 funding, but whatever's left out of tier 1 is what would go back to the state. So I think that's why we've, probably the biggest reason why we've done the zero base, not only to align, but then to make sure we're spending where we need to spend. And then also one of the things, like I mentioned earlier, talking about long-term, having some long-term projections. If we give a 2% raise this year, what is it going to cost me in 3 years? Starting to think like that, to where we don't get ourselves in a situation where we're having to adopt deficit budgets and hope for the best. We have more pennies available, but they're only copper. That would require another vote from the, another approval from the voters, and they're not worth as much, and they're subject to recapture. So I think being really strategic and knowing how we're spending our funds is really, really important. This is a really kind of, I said earlier, like a recalibration year of kind of our philosophy and how we're gonna operate so we can manage long-term.
I feel like it's a little paradoxical that we do have the Vader money, we need it, but we still need to be, we still need to be prudent. And that's our job, fiscally oversee the district and be sure that we're not spending just because we have it, because there's anyway, I see how that's a problem when you say, oh, well, you gotta pull in the belts, we're gonna do a zero-based budget, and you're like, I thought we had all this money.
Yeah.
But I am appreciative of the effort putting out to educate our district on that and for our employees and budget managers to understand it.
Yes, ma'am.
We're
all gonna be in this together. I know there's some anxiety maybe about building from zero. So I've got lots of resources, videos. We're gonna hold a few different types of budget meetings to where they're not gonna be out on an island. I'm gonna help them as much as I can, and to make sure we can keep operating for years and years to come.
And I want to be clear too, like, it's so easy to be on autopilot and just take last year's budget and say, oh, we're just gonna do the same thing. And I think it's great to stop and say, no, let's really analyze, what do we need? What do we want? What is outdated and can go away? So there's a, really good likelihood that several of the budget owners are gonna find that their new budget is not any smaller than their old budget. It's just more tightly analyzed to make sure that what we're spending money on, we actually need. And hopefully we will find some areas where we can save. But the main thing is that the money we spend is on products and services that directly benefit our kids and our North Star goal, right? So it's not just about saving money, it's about using money in the most effective way possible to get the most bang for our buck, to make the most progress and have the most benefit for our kids.
We're in a unique position that we have not, to your point, that we've not been in a very long time. And so it is the right time to do the hard things. And so thank you for your leadership and the rest of this team, because we're letting our priorities drive our budget as opposed to our budget drive our priorities. And so when we're in this position, it allows us to use money as a tool to lean into the things that work and reevaluate the things that don't. Yes. And so I know that's a hard lift, and it's hard to get people to rethink like that, but it sounds like y'all are approaching this from the right value system. We understand what works. We've got data. We've seen that tonight. So we understand. We're not guessing what works. We know what works. Let's fund it appropriately. Let's be disciplined and accountable to our customers who voted for this, and let's put our foot on the gas.
Yes, sir.
When will we know the recapture of those copper pennies? When is that going to be determined for us?
So in April, we'll get our preliminary values. We'll have a pretty good idea then. I have a call scheduled with Mr. Ernest to talk through a few things. But in April is when we'll have a really good idea of how it's going to shake out to look.
And that will probably carry on for how long?
It's hard to say, but as long as the taxable value stays high enough in our county.
So there's a high probability that once we recapture, that's going to occur for a little while.
It should.
So that basically is our taxes brought in by our taxpayers fully fills our bucket for what the state would have been subsidizing. But so
yes, ma'am.
Since that the state's not going to owe us any money, anything above that we give back to them.
That's right. And this year we're going to do Finance 102. It'll be a little different than last year. We're going to dive into recapture and a few other things. But you're exactly right. That means more of our local money is funding what the state says we should be allowed to operate on, and we're receiving less aid from the state.
Or any? Would it ever be zero?
Probably not.
Okay.
But I've seen some other schools be very little. So, we would probably still get some, but just very, very different than what we get now.
And there's two factors, the property values, but there's also student enrollment. So if student enrollment drops, that also, increases your recapture.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Just glad we have you here with your depth of knowledge. Thank you so much for
Yes.
putting this together and explaining it so well. And also thanks to you and a whole lot of other people for all the work that went into determining how to divvy up this Vader funding, both this year and, in the future.
Cindy, did you have a question?
But once we cross the line and possibly go into recapture, that's not permanent. We could come back out again.
You can, but
depending on
yes,
what's in balances.
you could, but it would be an interesting thing, but you can come out, yes.
I guess it depends on how much you go across the line.
Right.
As to how much you.
But every year.
Get back out of it.
Right.
But the projected value of the data center indicates we're gonna cross the line by a mile.
But they also, we're getting, they're not doing that all at once. Every year they add value because they're adding to their facilities.
Right.
So it won't go any less. Okay. They're spoon feeding us bite sizes on their value that they're incorporating on us.
Yes, that's right. So I'm happy to answer any other questions, but if you have no other questions, I would just recommend you approve the budget amendment for the Vader funds as presented. That gets our budget for fiscal year 26 to a balanced budget. Anyway, happy to answer any other questions if you have them.
Is there such a motion?
I move to amend the budget for the Vader funds as presented.
Second.
Taylor. So let's take a roll call vote. Danny Wheat?
Yes.
Rodney Goodman?
Yes.
Blair Schrader?
Yes.
Taylor Tidmore?
Yes.
Let's see who's next. Bill Enriquez?
Yes.
Angie Wiley? Yes. Cindy Earls?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. There is no further business, but we are not adjourned. At this time, we will return to closed session, which will be held under the provisions of Texas Government Code as presented before, Chapter 551, including but not limited to Section .071, .072, .074, .076, .082, and .0821. The board is now in closed session. The time is 9:37. Do you need a nap?